A peaceful farm in the countryside of Phrae, Thailand, a place where a wealthy couple built a life of tranquility. But that peace was shattered by a horrifying secret, a shocking discovery. Two bodies buried 2 meters deep near the duck pen. No signs of robbery, no obvious clues. Only one strange detail. The couple's brand new pickup truck had disappeared. The police launched an investigation, scouring security cameras, and soon they made a chilling discovery. Two shadowy figures were caught sneaking onto the farm. One of them drove away in the stolen truck, disappearing into the night. And with that, the case hit a dead end. Until one day a neighbor walked into the police station and revealed a horrifying truth, a secret that left the entire community in shock. Who was the real murderer? And what led this family to such a tragic end? I'm Don, and you're listening to True Crime Revealed, where we uncover the dark realities behind true crime cases that shock the world. Let's begin. Before tragedy struck, Alan Hogg was a successful businessman from Edinburgh, Scotland. A skilled engineer, he had owned a specialized dry cleaning company, amassing considerable wealth. But instead of living a lavish life, Alan found peace in an unexpected place, Thailand. And it was there that he met the love of his life, Nod Suddaen. Nod was a kind-hearted woman, deeply devoted to her family. She not only provided financial support to her relatives, but also took care of her disabled younger brother. Despite being married to a millionaire, Nod remained humble, generous, and always willing to help those in need. In 2014, the couple decided to settle in Thailand, building a vast 32-hectare farm and a beautiful 3-story villa. They wanted a quiet, peaceful life surrounded by nature. But tragically, this very place would become their final resting ground. And the man behind it all? None other than Nod's own brother, Warut Sachit. Warut was once a trusted member of the family. He lived on Alan and Nod's property, working as the farm's caretaker. But over time, tensions between Warut and Alan began to rise. Alan was a disciplined businessman with high expectations, while Warut was lazy and unreliable. Alan's constant criticisms fueled Warut's resentment, and when Nod started siding with her husband, Warut felt utterly betrayed. The anger inside him grew, simmering over the years, until it finally exploded into a deadly plan. What started as small disagreements soon grew into an unspoken war. Alan Hogg was a businessman, disciplined, methodical, and precise. Warut Sachit was the opposite, careless, slow, and resistant to change. Alan had given Warut the opportunity to work on the farm, but instead of seeing it as a privilege, Warut saw it as an insult. He resented Alan's constant supervision, his demands for efficiency, his expectations for hard work. For Alan, it was about maintaining order. For Warut, it was about control. He dismissed Alan's instructions, ignored his criticisms, and slowly the tension between them escalated. But the breaking point wasn't Alan, it was Nod. For years, Nod had tolerated her brother's flaws, choosing to see the best in him. But even she could no longer ignore his laziness, his growing defiance. When she finally sided with Alan, Warut felt a deep humiliation. His own sister had turned against him. And the man he despised, the foreigner who had taken over his family's land, had won. The resentment inside Warut festered. His anger, once a simmering frustration, began to consume him. And soon, it became something far darker. By mid-September, Warut's rage had reached its peak. And then, the final blow came. On September 15, 2018, Nod visited her youngest brother. In a quiet, tense conversation, she revealed her frustrations. Warut was no longer pulling his weight, no longer helping the farm, no longer listening. And so a decision was made. Warut had to leave. Alan and Nod had given him countless chances. Too many chances. But now it was over. Warut would have to pack his things and go. That evening, Warut sat alone outside his wooden home, staring at the villa in the distance. It was no longer his. Soon, the land, the life he had always known, would be gone. And as he sat there, bitterness filled his mind, twisting into something unrecognizable. If he couldn't have this life, neither could they. But Warut had a problem. He couldn't carry out the plan alone. He needed help, And more than anything, he needed money. That's when an idea took shape, an idea as simple as it was deadly. He would sell Alan and Nod's brand new pickup truck, and he would use that money to have them killed. There was one man who could help him, Suma Uthpamon, a local neighbor. Warut approached him, carefully choosing his words, testing the waters. He didn't need to convince Suma to pull the trigger. He just needed someone who knew the right people. And Suma did. Through Suma, Warut was introduced to two men, killers for hire. Their names? Pia Kamai, 63 years old, and Kapang Kaman, just 24. Different generations, but the same ruthless ambition. For them, this was just another job. A price was named, a deal was made, and Alan and Nod's fate was sealed. The plan was simple, the execution brutal. The sun was setting over the quiet farm. It was September 18, 2018, a day that should have been like any other. But tonight, this peaceful home would become the scene of a brutal double murder. At exactly 6:00 p.m., Warut Sachet arrived at the farm with two men, Pia Kamai and Kapang Kaman. The killers for hire had been promised payment. Now it was time to finish the job. Alan Hogg was in the backyard feeding the ducks, completely unaware of the danger lurking behind him. Pia Kamai, the 63-year-old hitman, took his position, raising a small caliber handgun. He took aim. The first shot hit Alan in the chest. He staggered, confused, his body jerking from the impact. Before he could react, the second shot was fired, straight to his head. He collapsed instantly, his blood soaking into the dirt near the duck pen. Alan Hogg, the man who had built a home on this land, was dead. Inside the house, Nod Suddaen was preparing for the evening, unaware that just meters away, her husband had been executed. Kapang Kaman, the younger of the two killers, slipped inside. He moved quickly, grabbing Nod from behind, one hand clamping over her mouth before she could scream. She fought back, kicking and struggling, but he was stronger. He dragged her from the kitchen, forcing her into the garage. And there, waiting for her, was Warut, her own brother. Pinned down and helpless, Nod looked up at the man she had once trusted. But there was no hesitation in Warut's eyes, no sign of mercy. He lifted a heavy wrench and brought it crashing down on her skull. One blow, then another, and another. The force shattered her bones, her body convulsed, then went still. Nod Suddaen was dead, murdered by the very person who should have protected her. With the killings done, there was only one task left, getting rid of the evidence. The three men dragged Alan's lifeless body across the farm, bringing it toward the duck pen where he had died. Nod's body was pulled from the garage, her limp frame leaving streaks of blood on the concrete. At the edge of the property, they had already prepared a grave, a hole 2 meters deep, freshly dug in the soft earth. One by one, the bodies were lowered inside. The dirt was shoveled back into place, the ground smoothed over as if nothing had happened. Alan and Nod were gone, buried beneath the very land they had worked so hard to build. But even the most carefully executed crimes leave behind traces. Warut and his accomplices thought they had covered their tracks, but in the days to come, small mistakes would lead to their downfall. What were those mistakes, and how did the police finally uncover the truth? Alan Hogg and Nod Suddaen had vanished. They weren't answering their phones. They missed a scheduled meeting. For Alan, a man known for his punctuality and discipline, this was highly unusual. Their friends began to worry. At first, they thought maybe the couple had gone on an unplanned trip, but as days passed with no sign of them, concern turned into fear. One friend decided to check on them. On September 23, 2018, a close friend of Alan Hogg drove to the couple's 32-acre farm in Phrae Province. As he arrived, something felt off. The house was unlocked. Everything inside was untouched. Clothes, luggage, even their phones were still there. There were no signs of a sudden trip. But one thing stood out. Their brand new pickup truck was missing. As the friend walked further into the house, he made a chilling discovery. Blood stains in the dressing room. Someone had tried to clean them, but the traces remained. This was no ordinary disappearance. Something terrible had happened. Without hesitation, he called the police. Police in Phrae Province arrived at the scene promptly. They searched every corner of the 3-story villa, gathering evidence and questioning anyone who might have information. But the farm was vast, over 32 acres, making the search difficult. If foul play was involved, the bodies could be hidden anywhere. Then officers noticed something unusual, a patch of disturbed soil near the duck pen. No other part of the property had been dug up recently. This immediately raised suspicion. To confirm their doubts, the police brought in sniffer dogs. The dogs rushed to the disturbed soil, barking and digging furiously. It was clear they had detected something beneath the ground. The police ordered an excavation team to dig. Within 2 hours, their worst fears were confirmed. 2 bodies buried 2 meters deep. A man, a woman. Their clothes still intact, their bodies carefully placed. There was no doubt this was Alan Hogg Nod Suddaen. The quiet community of Frey was in shock. The couple, once known for their generosity and kindness, had been murdered and buried in their own backyard. But the most haunting question remained. Who did this, and why? The bodies were immediately transported to a forensic lab for autopsy. The results revealed the horrifying truth. Alan Hogg had been shot twice, 1 bullet to the chest, another to the head. His death was instant. Nod Suddaen had suffered an even more brutal fate. She had been bludgeoned to death with a heavy wrench. Her skull was shattered. This was not a robbery gone wrong. This was pure, calculated murder. 2 different methods, 2 precise killings, and both bodies buried together. Whoever did this had planned it carefully. The police now had no doubt. This was a premeditated crime. And the most terrifying part? The murderer was likely someone they knew. Despite uncovering the bodies, the police still lacked something crucial. Solid evidence pointing to the killer. Who had the strongest motive? Who stood to gain the most from Alan and Nod's deaths? All clues pointed toward one person, someone no one had suspected. But the police needed more than just suspicions. They needed evidence, and they needed a confession. As investigators scoured the evidence, they turned to one of the most powerful tools in modern crime solving, CCTV footage. And what they found would change the course of the case. Footage from inside and outside the property revealed a shocking lead. The person seen driving away in Alan's stolen pickup truck was none other than Warut Sachit, Nod's own brother. Warut had always been close to the couple. He lived on their property, worked on their farm, and was considered part of their inner circle. But now he was the last known person seen in possession of their truck. Police quickly named Warut Sachit as the prime suspect, but there was one problem. He was gone. With a suspect identified, police launched a full-scale manhunt. They searched the surrounding areas, questioned neighbors, and followed every lead. But Warut had disappeared. He had seemingly vanished into thin air, leaving behind nothing but suspicion. Authorities expanded their search, believing he might have fled to a nearby province or even crossed the border. But without a concrete lead, they had no way of knowing where he had gone. As investigators continued their search, they turned their attention to the only missing piece of physical evidence, Alan and Nod's stolen pickup truck. If Warut had taken the truck, where was it now? Police traced the vehicle's movements, following a complex web of sales and exchanges. The truck had been sold multiple times, passing through different hands across different towns. Each new owner had no idea about the gruesome crime attached to the vehicle. By the time police located the final buyer, any physical evidence that might have linked Warut to the murder had been lost. The truck was no longer enough to prove his guilt. Despite their suspicions, police lacked a crucial piece of evidence, concrete proof tying Warut directly to the crime. He was arrested, questioned, and pressed for answers. But Warut denied everything. Without forensic evidence, without a murder weapon, and without a confession, the case stood on shaky ground. The court had no choice but to grant Warut bail. And just like that, the case hit a dead end. For a while, it seemed as if Warut would escape justice, but then an unexpected witness came forward. A neighbor named Suma Uthpamon walked into the police station with a confession that would break the case wide open. Suma hesitated as he spoke, his voice uneasy. He admitted that before the murders, Warut had approached him with a chilling request. He wanted help in hiring hitmen to kill Alan and Nod. At first, Suma refused, but Warut was persistent. Eventually, Suma introduced him to two men who were willing to carry out the job. For his involvement, Suma received a payment of 25,000 baht, and now, with guilt weighing on his conscience, he was ready to tell the police everything. With Suma's confession, the police finally had the missing link they needed. They now had names, connections, and a direct witness who could testify to Warut's role in orchestrating the murders. The hunt for justice was back on. But how would authorities capture Warut and the hired killers? And what punishment awaited them? Armed with Suma's testimony, police wasted no time. Raids were carried out across the province. One by one, the suspects were caught. First, Pia Kamai and Kapang Kaman were arrested in their homestays. With overwhelming evidence against them, both men quickly confessed to their roles in the murder. Then came the most crucial arrest. Warut Sachit, the man who had once been a trusted family member, the man who had plotted the murders of his own sister and brother-in-law, was finally taken into custody. Under police interrogation, Warut cracked. He admitted everything. He had orchestrated the entire crime, driven by greed, jealousy, and resentment. He had paid the killers. He had personally taken Nod's life. And now, justice was closing in on him. In June 2019, nearly a year after the brutal murders, the case finally went to trial. The evidence was clear. The confessions had sealed their fate, and the court's ruling would send a powerful message. Warut Sachit was convicted as the mastermind behind the crime. He had arranged everything, hiring the killers, selling Alan's truck to fund the murders, and personally executing his own sister. Pia Kamai and Kapang Kamanan, the hired hitmen, were also convicted. All three men received the harshest punishment possible: death sentences. As for Suma Uth Pamon, his cooperation with the police led to a reduced sentence. Instead of facing the death penalty, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The court described the murder of Alan Hogg Nod Suddaen as a crime that had damaged Thailand's reputation. The case had gained international attention, and the brutal nature of the killings had horrified the nation. For Alan and Nod's daughter, Robin Hogg, the verdict brought some closure. She had lost both of her parents in a crime of unthinkable cruelty, but at least now, justice had been served. The trial marked the end of a tragic chapter, but it also left behind a chilling reminder that sometimes the greatest betrayals come from within our own families. The murder of Alan Hogg Nod Suddaen was not just about greed. It was about envy, resentment, and a sense of entitlement that led a man to commit the ultimate act of betrayal. Warut had been given a home, a boom, a life of stability, but instead of gratitude, he let his jealousy consume him. And in the end, that jealousy destroyed not only Alan and Nod, but also himself. The story of Alan and Nod serves as a dark lesson that trust can be misplaced, and that sometimes the most dangerous people are those closest to us. But in the end, justice was served, and the memory of Alan and Nod lives on. Thank you for joining us in today's episode of Shadows of Crime. If you found this story compelling, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications to stay updated on more shocking true crime cases. What do you think about this case? Let us know in the comments below. Until next time, stay safe and stay vigilant.